So for today's warm-up, I will be working examples that will get you started and make sure you completely understand what's expected of you on your in-class practice today. So this is a screenshot of your practice. I'm going to start with the most basic example. This is the parent function, just to demonstrate that every equation that I give you, whether it's written as y equals or whether it's written in function notation, every equation that I give you has a value of a, h, and k. So this first thing is, all I'm asking you to do, well, let me start by just finding the values of a. So this equation right here, regardless of which one, can be rewritten with the value of a. There's always a 1 in front of the x. There's not a number being added or subtracted to the x, so that's the same thing as saying subtract 0. And there's not a number being added or subtracted to the n, so that's the same thing as adding or subtracting 0. So I think you will agree with me that x minus 0 is just x, and then x times 1 is just x, and then x plus 0 is just x. So this equation and this equation and this equation, those are identical. The only reason why I might write it like this is so that you can literally see the values of a, h, and k. The number that's being multiplied, the coefficient of the x, that's always your a. And this question right here, where you see this, I'm asking you to put which inequality goes in there. So I want to know, is a positive or negative? Well, there's no negative sign, so that means a is positive. So right here, we're going to say a is greater than 0. That's another way of saying a is positive. Then the absolute value of a, what I'm asking you to do there is tell me what is the sign of a. Oh no, I'm asking you to tell me what the value of a is regardless of its sign. And again, the number in front of the x is, if we don't see a number there, the a is 1. And then the number that's being subtracted from the x, added or subtracted from the x, in this case, it is 0, and so is the k. The k is 0. So because we know that a is positive, we know that there's no reflection. So under the transformation list right here, I'm going to write no reflection. Because if a was negative, then it would be reflecting about the x-axis, but since a is positive, there is no reflection. Since a is 1, there is no stretch or shrink. So it means there is no dilation. There is no stretch or shrink. There is no horizontal shift. Because this, by the way, is the parent function, so none of these transformations happened, and there is no vertical shift. So even if I did ask you about the parent function, you could still fill out this form just simply by telling me what the value of a, h, and k are. And did you not see me just pick black? Okay, I'm not going to fight that. There is no value of a, h, and k, and since there is no, well, there is a value of a, h, and k. A, h, and k for the parent function, a is 1, h is 0, k is 0, which means there's been no transformations. Now, the next equation that I'm going to give you, let's do, we'll just make something up. My computer's being awful glitchy. There we go. So here's the equation that I'm going to give you. You'll still need to fill in all the same stuff that I asked you to on the other one. So I'll write all that in black, pretending that that's coming right off my worksheet. And then I'll fill it in red. So this one is saying, okay, is the a positive or negative? We see right here, this negative sign right here is telling me that my a is a negative. So that means I'm going to put the less than symbol, because when a is negative, a is less than 0. Now this is saying ignore the sign. Don't tell me if it's positive or negative. Just give me the value of a. The value of a right here is 1. And the h, because we see, remember the formula, let me write the formula down. The formula is y, or f of x, equals a times x minus h plus k. So the formula says minus. So whatever we see right here, we know the value of h is the opposite of what we see. The h is actually a -2, because we plugged a -2 in on top of this minus. We said x minus a -2. That's why we're seeing a plus. But the k is whatever sign you see. So we see a -1, so the k is -1. So those are the values. You should be able to always look at that and give me a value of a, h, and k. So now that we know if a is negative, then we know we have reflection. And be sure you tell me what kind of reflection over x-axis. Okay, a is 1, so there is no stretch or shrink. No stretch or shrink. Okay, h horizontal, it's negative, so it went left 2. We did a shift left 2. And k is a -1, so we did a shift, or translate. You can use the word translate. We translate down 1. Remember, h is horizontal, so you're either going to go left or right. K is vertical, so you're either going to go up or down. Okay, and you let the signs tell you which one. So that would be the description of the parameters. The parameters are a, h, and k, and the a, h, and k help you identify the transformations. So we find the parameters just by looking, and then we have memorized what that tells us about the transformation. So that should get you through the first part of this practice.